Okay, let me just read off the opening statement. This interview is being conducted for the Veterans History Project for the Library of Congress. The veteran's name is Don Easton. He was born March 19th, 1932. He served in the U.S. Navy during the Korean War. And we are recording this on January 10th, 2021. I am Lucas DeBenedetti, and I'm conducting this interview. Okay, so you were saying about your early services?
Yes. Did you get down there? I went from my home in Powell, Wyoming to Butte, Montana, where I was sworn in and given a physical. From there, I went by train to San Diego, California, to attend boot camp at Navy Training Center in San Diego. You okay there?
Yep, I got it. Why did you?
After boot camp, I was assigned to Maryland to a Navy medical training school, which was about 3-4 months, about 6 weeks, I guess, long where we learned the techniques of the medical training and we were called corpsman, CORPSMAN. Okay.
Yep. Did you choose to become a medic?
No, I was assigned that for my training at boot camp. We did interviews and tests to see what we would best perform at, and what they needed most at that time were medics. Okay, after boot camp and medical corpsman school in Maryland, I think it was Elkton, Maryland, near Havre de Grace, Maryland. And following that schooling, I was sent to Bethesda, Maryland, to serve at the Naval Hospital at Bethesda. In the Navy, you can have shore duty, and that's on the continent and so on. But sometime during your time in the Navy, you have to go to what they call sea duty. And that is, you're either put on a ship or some other sea duty, sent to an island or something like that. And corpsman, I was a corpsman, and I was sent to the Fleet Marine Force, the U.S. Marines, to be one of their medics. Do you understand this?
Yeah.
Okay. When I left the hospital after 6-7 months, so I was sent to the Fleet Marine Force, and I attended the Marine base at Lejeune, North Carolina. I was assigned to a regiment, which was I should say that this camp was the home of the the 2nd Marine Division. And in the division, they have their regiments and battalions and companies and platoons and so on. But I was assigned to the 8th Marines, 3rd Battalion, H&S Company. I don't remember what the H&S was.
That's okay.
But I served with them for a while and took combat training in the Marines. And while in the Marines, I was sent with the 3rd Battalion, 8th Marines, 3rd Battalion, H&S Company. I was sent to Villegas, on an island down by Puerto Rico. There we served in combat conditions. And then we were on Villegas for about 3 months. Then we returned to North Carolina and served there at North Carolina. And then we were in North Carolina for a while for more training and so on. And you have to realize that the whole time you're in the Navy and the Marines, you're being trained. So anyway, we were there at Lejeune for a while, and then I transferred to another company, and regiment. I was in the second Marines, 2nd platoon, and battalion, and I served with the Company C as their corpsman. When we were back at Lejeune, we went to the sick bays. Those are the outlying medical facilities, and they consist of a building and kind of a mini hospital. We had corpsmen. We must have had 10 or 15 corpsmen stationed there with 3 doctors, and they also had a dental clinic there with dentists and dental technicians who were corpsmen. And then we were there a while, and we would take care of the Marines and so on. You have to understand a division is about 20,000 Marines, and it takes a lot of medical facilities to keep them all active and so on. And they have broken limbs, and they're sickness, and they have to have their teeth pulled and things like that. After a while, I was there for a couple of months, and this battalion and regiment, it was their turn to go back to Villegas for more training. So while we were in Villegas, we had what they called a battalion aid station, and the corpsmen and the doctors. I think we had 2 doctors there and a dentist. And while we were there, we had liberty and stuff, and we got to go to San Juan, Puerto Rico, and we went education and a lot of fun. Following that, we went back to Lejeune, North Carolina, and I was there a month or two and got transferred to 6th Marine Regiment, 2nd Battalion, and H&S Company. H&S Company is the company that sets up and has the battalion medical facilities. Even when they're in combat, they have a battalion medical station and so on. But anyway, I was there in the 6th Marines, and they had a sea duty to do, and they called them cruises, and it was a cruise of the Mediterranean. We were put on a troop ship, the USS Sanborn, and we left base at North Carolina and went to cross the Atlantic to the Mediterranean Sea, where we went to different foreign ports. Our first one was in Morocco, North Africa, and then we went to Mirs El Kabir, Turkey. Following that, we went to Athens, and then we went to Palma, Spain. And while in Palma, Spain, that's an island off of Spain, then we went to Genoa, Italy. And while at Genoa, Italy, I took a tour. A bunch of us sailors and Marines took a bus and went to Paris for liberty. And we were gone for about 5 or 6 days, I guess. And then we returned by train to Genoa, Italy, where we got back on the ship. And then I guess was when we went to Palma, Spain, and Barcelona. And while in those places we had liberty and so on. Then we went out through the Mediterranean Sea past Gibraltar and went to France, went to Marseille, France, and had liberty there. And we went to a couple other places in France, but I can't remember them. Then about June, we had been over there in the Mediterranean for about 6 months. And then we left the European theater and went back to the United States. I was in Camp Lejeune for about 10 days. And then I was sent to Norfolk, Virginia to be discharged from the Marines back into the Navy to get discharged. And that was like in July 1955. Now, can I go into any details for you or what?
Yeah,
what do you want?
Go into as many details as you want.
Well, I don't know what kind of details you're talking about.
Okay.
When we were training at Lejeune, or?
Sure, you can, yeah, just talk about your, I guess your early training experience, and then, yeah, just whatever you want to talk about.
Well, that's about it. I just gave you my whole itinerary and so on. And while in those different locations in the United States and in Europe and Caribbean, we went on what they called Liberty. That's furlough. No, that's not furlough. Leave is furlough. But went on Liberty. And those are overnight passes and so on to different cities and so on. And while in Bethesda, Maryland, I had Liberty. Of course, that's in Washington, D.C. I had Liberty in Washington, D.C., and I got to go to see the monuments and so on, and I went to museums, and of course I went to the USOs and met girls, and we had dances and so on, which was a lot of fun. And while I was in Washington, D.C., a friend of mine and I drove from Washington, D.C. to New York City, where we stayed overnight, and we were there during New Year's Eve. And I spent New Year's Eve on Times Square, which is a different experience altogether. There's thousands of people there, and very enlightening and fun. And then we went back to Washington, D.C. to Bethesda. But I think all these times that I was on Liberty and so on, they were very educational. I tried to always go to the museums and look in the museums and so on. The art museums and the zoos and the as I said, just regular museums and so on. I really enjoyed those things. We came back to Washington, D.C. and finished up our tour there, and that's when I got sent to the Marines.
About what time was that?
Oh, that was about let's see. That was about 54, I think.
Okay.
No, about 53, I guess. 53, 54. 1954.
Yeah.
And I spent almost a year and a half in the Marines as a medic. They called us corpsmen.
Were you very busy while you were in the Marines? Did you have a lot of...
Oh, yeah, we were busy all the time. You had things to do, and when we were in those sick bays or battalion aid stations, we had people, Marines who were sick or injured in accidents, and we had to take care of them just like in a little hospital. And if they were real bad, we sent them to the division hospital. And if they were even worse, they were sent to a hospital like Bethesda and so on. I don't know what else you want to know.
Were you also, when you went to Europe, were you with the Marines or with the Navy?
Yes, I was with the Marines.
Okay.
When they sent me to the Marines, they transferred me into the Marines. I was a regular Marine.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. Marines are a part of the U.S. Navy. And they don't have medics in the Marines. They're all combat trained infantrymen and tanks, and the whole division is that way. And they have this Navy medical department attached to the Marines, and they're a part of the Marines, but they're actually Navy. You may not understand that. I don't know.
No, I think I got it.
Oh, okay.
Did you make any close friendships while you were in the service?
Any what?
Close friendships.
Close gunships?
Friendships. Were you?
Oh, friendship.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I had many, many, many friends in the service. They're guys that you work with every day and you get to know them. I have one friend who I'm still in contact with. I just talked to him about a month ago on the phone. He's retired and in Sun City, California. That's in Northern California up there. Sun City. I think that's where he's at. He's in California anyway. But we're still friends after all these years and so on. And I talked to him the other day and had a nice visit. A lot of my friends who I made in the service are my age and older, and some of them have died, and I've lost contact with them. The friend is in California. He's my same age, and he's still married and doing fine. He was originally from Montana, and I guess that's how we got to be friends, was he was from Montana and I was from Wyoming, so we got to be friends. We went out on Liberty together for many times, and since discharge stuff, he's come down to Wyoming to visit me and so on, and we've been very good friends. I had a lot of other friends that I, of course, lost contact with. I know their names and stuff, and I remember them, but I haven't contacted them.
About how many people did you work with did you have teams, or did you kind of do your own thing, or what was your kind of experience as a medic like?
Well, when I was attached to the Marines, you have to understand we were at Lejeune, and that's the home base of the 2nd Marine Division, which is about 20,000 people, I think. And they have their general and administration things, and then that division is divided up into about three or four regiments. And a regiment is probably 1,000 people makes up a regiment, and a regiment is 3 battalions. I think each battalion would be around 800-900 people, and in that battalion they would have 3 companies, combat companies, and in those combat companies they had probably 120, 140 individual Marines, officers and so on, and medics. they would have maybe 7 or 8 medics in each company, in addition to the battalion aid stations, which was a separate thing. And during combat, the Marines is a combat fighting group of men, and the medics go with them into combat, and if they get wounded, well, they fix them up and send them back to the battalion aid station, and then they go from there to the regimental hospital, and then they get sent to a hospital ship or something like that. So there's a lot of people involved in the division.
What did you go on to do once you left the military? Did you go to college or have a different career?
I went to college, and I had 1 year of college before I went into the Navy. Mm-hmm. And when I got out of the Navy, I was a year later or so, I got married to a lady in Virginia that I had met while I was in Norfolk, Virginia, to be discharged. But we got married and we moved to Wyoming, and I attended the University of Wyoming. I graduated there with a degree in Bachelor of Science degree. Following that college, I went to a special college in Cincinnati, Ohio, and became a mortician. And I returned to Wyoming, and I worked in the insurance office and so on for a while. And then I bought my father's established funeral home in Powell, Wyoming, and I became an active mortician for about 40 years. Then I retired. And that's what I'm doing in Sweetwater, Montana, just in a retirement home.
Were you able to keep in touch with family and friends while you were in the military, like other people who weren't?
Oh, yes. Sure. We had mail and telephones. This is like another job. And then I would get leave. You got 30 days leave a year. And I would go home to my home in Wyoming and spend it there with my folks and so on, and fish and travel and so on, and just like a leave, and it was really great. I could be gone from the base at Lejeune up to 30 days. But usually we just took a week or two and went traveling then. And every weekend at Lejeune and Bethesda and so on, well, we were off on the weekend just like a regular job. And you could go play baseball or golf or whatever you wanted to, and your weekends were free. Some weekends you had to work, but most generally they were free.
Is there
still there? Are you still there?
Yeah. Is there anything you would like to add that you haven't talked about yet?
No, I could probably go over my leaves and stuff and travel, and for the 2 or 3 hours you want all that detail.
Well, whatever you want to talk about.
Well, it's better if you ask questions and so on.
Why did you end up joining the military in the first place? I don't think I asked you that at the beginning.
Okay. I was 19 and I was 1 year in college. And the draft at my home, the draft was going to get me and put me in the Army. So I didn't want to be in the Army, so I joined the Navy. That's how I got in the Navy. And while I was there, they did some testing and so on and decided I would be a good medic. So I went to medic school.
Would you say that was particularly difficult, or did you end up enjoying medic school?
It was a lot like a college, and it was a very busy time. You attended a lot of classes, and you had a lot of studying to do, and it was much like a college, I found out later. And but it could be quite difficult, but they taught you how to attend wounds and how to attend sick people and so on. And Bethesda was a naval hospital, and we took care of a lot of sick people. My first duty there at the Bethesda was on a contagious disease ward, and we had about 60 beds, I guess. And these people all had the flu or whatever, so I attended them, and we did things like that, where we were just like today you have in the civilian life, you have your certified nurse assistants, which we did a lot of that work that they did, and you have your licensed practical nurses, and I guess that was kind of about what we were, licensed practical Navy nurses, and we could give shots and we could give out medicines and attend people like that. And some of our corpsmen went into specialty training. Some of them were laboratory technicians, some were surgical technicians, dental technicians, all kinds of technicians and so on. But my specialty was with the Marines as a combat corpsman. So that's how that gets along. Anything else?
Did you find being a medic to be stressful, or were you able to kind of manage the stress pretty well, or the difficulties?
I think all your departments and so on in the service, there are times when it's stressful, but most generally it's a regular job and so on. You know, the Marines, if they go into combat, and that's very stressful for a Marine, don't you think?
Yeah.
And being a medic in that situation is also stressful, and being in a battalion aid station in combat is stressful. So I think you have to understand what combat's like, I guess.
Yeah. Did you experience combat?
No, you'll have to understand that for each man that's in combat, there are maybe 10 or more people behind him in the service that don't go to combat. They are truck drivers or medical supply. They cooks. They're dishwashers. They do all kinds of stuff, but there's probably 10 or so of those people that don't go to combat that are behind the combat guys. So a division, unless they send the whole division into combat, they're broke down into their regiments and go to combat in their regiments and so on. So it depends on what you do as to. Okay, do you understand that?
Yep. Anything else you want to mention, or is that about it?
Well, you asked about medals a while ago.
Oh yeah.
Of course, I was not in combat, so I didn't have any combat medals. We had what they called unit citations, unit medals, and so on. And I had those from serving in Europe. See, when I was in Europe on that ship, there was about 800 Marines on that ship, and I was one of the corpsmen that was attached to that Marine unit. Now, if something happened in Europe while we were there, and they needed some combat forces to go into another country and evacuate the embassy or something like that, that's what the Marines on that ship were there for. They were ready to go into combat should they be needed in Europe someplace. But anyway, they gave them a citation for that, a European service medal. The one medal that I had that I was proud of was the Navy Good Conduct Medal. You get that if you serve 4 years or more without being arrested or something like that. You know, so I was a very good medic, and I didn't get arrested for anything. I didn't cause any problems. So I'm proud of that medal I got than any of the citation medals I had. So you know, you ought to go to a military base and have a tour of it or something. I don't know where the 5th Marines are. I think they're out of San Diego. But they have the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th Marines divisions. And then they have their air support group, hospital group. They have a ship, a regular hospital ship and stuff that's ready for these Marines if they get into combat and stuff. You evidently don't know much about it. So, have you gone to movies and seen those movies that they have?
Yeah, I've seen some.
Well, when you understand a little bit about, of course, those are pretty well fancied up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I understand some, but obviously I don't understand. Yeah. Hmm. Did
You
you?
don't belong to anything like the ROTC or anything like that.
No. This is a separate thing. This is. Yeah. No, I know.
What in the world are they?
What were you saying?
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Go ahead. You know what? Are you there?
Yeah. What were you saying?
Well, you said something. You started to say, you know what? You know. And you were going to say something. I don't know what you were going to say.
I was just gonna ask if you joined any veteran organizations.
I belong to the American Legion and the Veterans of Foreign Wars, VFW. And later I joined what they call the Graybeards. Those were the veterans of the Korean War. They put out a magazine of their own and so on. But they help. When they help veterans or people in civilian life who are veterans and so on, but the Legion and the VFW, they help those people, and they help them in congressional type of things. They have their lobbyists and so on, and so they get a lot of veterans. What I want to say. Well, they just help the veterans out with their congressional delegations and so on.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say?
No, I don't know why they would want this for the Library of Congress.
Oh, they just want to hear about all your experiences involving the military, both your time in and your time out of the service.
Yeah. Well, it's a very, very short interview and so on, so they didn't get much out of me.
No, we got no.
I tell you one thing. My time in the Navy, some of it was bad, as you say, is stressful. But I remember mainly the good times I had in there. The things I did when I was on liberty and leave, and just my everyday experiences. I remember the good things more than the bad things.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so yeah, thank you for your service. I'm gonna.
Okay.
Gonna